or in the history of private. Another essay on my site, the keyword turnpikes, I didn't write a point to is turnpikes were created by business communities in the cities as toll roads, but not for profit, just to get customers. So you have all these different funding models, but the thing is, the costs, real costs, are so low that as we remove the artificial barriers, problems go away. Like, what does it cost for copper wire laid down 100 years ago? And what is, the flip side is, what does it cost to maintain a sidewalk? Those things are expensive. A tree destroys a sidewalk, you've got to maintain it. So we already have societal mechanisms, we just don't have the societal appreciation.
Sorry. I just wanted to point out for the middle mile case in DC, where we're lucky potentially because the DC municipal government does have DC net fiber. They are actively building out the DC net, which is a middle mile provider, and it's open access to last mile providers, which I hope that many, many small ISPs can spring up and buy it, because it would be a shame to just have to turn right back around to Comcast and Verizon. But you know, that is a grant. Part of it is funded by the BTOP funds from the Federal Stimulus Act, but actually even more of it is funded directly by the DC government. So here we do have the opportunity to have a model that is, it has to be nonprofit. You know, whatever revenues they make have to put right back in. It's not paying shareholders. So at least in this case, we have a way to potentially escape that.
We have time for one more question, then we have to wrap it up.
Yeah, I have one little comment and then a question. My comment is, you know, I spent 12 years in the semiconductor industry, and this idea that we cannot afford silicon is idiotic. Okay, and my company, starting in 1985, started to make that not be true. But at any rate, we see that when we look at the three presenters today, we see on the one hand very much do-it-yourself, without a business plan, community networking. But then we have two businessmen, okay? And both of these businessmen are showing that, you know, maybe the unfunded, unbusiness plan community networking is not something that can by itself make the kind of change that Bob is talking about. But Bob is giving us a view at the 60,000 foot level, saying that, hey, if we follow Ruff's business plan or invent new business plans that in competition to Ruff's business plan, that now all of a sudden you can pay the people that need to be paid, and also about sidewalks, I have to take care of sidewalks, and we do it by charging people monthly fees. Now my question is, it sounds like in DC, the circle around DC is not the middle mile, it's like the 10 miles, it's sort of like 10 miles, all right? So it leaves you a last 10 miles, I think. And so that allows the middle mile to be from my local townhome community out to that network around, that fiber around DC.
We have to make these answers kind of brief because our bandwidth runs out in a few minutes.
Just to be clear though, the DC net, although it's based by a fiber ring around DC, they are building directly to neighborhoods, and specifically the way they're doing this now with the BTOP funds is that they have a list of about 200 or so community anchor institutions in DC that they are building fiber directly into these community anchor institutions, and this is the way essentially that it's fanning out deep into the neighborhoods. Our hope at the Broadband Bridge is that we can leverage the fact that these are community anchor institutions that have deep connections to their community, not for profit, but are for the good of what's needed around them, especially with the underserved, and then we can use their network and their knowledge and their bandwidth to then spread that out wirelessly into the homes of those who don't need it.
I take a very simple view.
Those who do need it, sorry.
Yeah, I just take a very simple view. All these things that we talk stuff are in the business model of the telcos, and if the cheaper buy from them, telcos cheaper buy from them. It's not, you know, and then we just transition as we force the market price down.
Can I make one comment there?
Yeah.
Right. Actually, two comments. One of them is an interesting thing in Western Massachusetts. There's a stimulus-funded broadband initiative that's running effectively fiber dark fiber and lit fiber around Western Massachusetts. And they actually approached us because they have community access points that are close to industrial parks, but the industrial parks remain served only by Verizon. And although they won't be live until 2013, it looks very, very viable to use the NetBlazer model to connect the businesses in the industrial park, and it becomes economically feasible as soon as you have some way to get a middle mile connection back to Springfield or Boston. So we'll find that out in the second half of 2013. The other comment is just about the economics of fiber. One of the really striking things about Stockholm in Sweden, and this is Stockholm, not Sweden in general, is that in the early 90s, the city government funded a public corporation with the express purpose of burying dark fiber and making it available to all comers. And politically, they had to do that because Telia, the incumbent the incumbent fixed line phone operator, would have, freaked out at the whole thing. But this city body basically ran fiber whenever streets were being dug up, whenever they could find a way that they could make it pay back. It had to be break even within 4 years. There was no stimulus money poured into it, and it took most of the 90s for them to get a footprint. But the interesting thing is, while there was a 5-year lag, by the year 2000, there were over 300 service providers and other entities who were leasing dark fiber in different paths under the streets of Stockholm. And I know in 2002, when I was proud to have a 6 megabit cable modem, I had a friend in Stockholm who had a 100 megabit symmetric connection in his condo. The point is that dark fiber has a useful life comparable to the conduits that, but the moment you light up that fiber with electronics, the gear that you're using is functionally obsolete within 30 months. So if you want to do something as a project like a stimulus-funded metro ring and so forth, one of the things you should make available is dark fiber, because anything that the government corporation provides in terms of lit services is going to be obsolete in 3 years. If you make dark fiber available to people, then they'll be in a position to actually rent the dark fiber and light it up with things that you can't even envision today, which will be coming to the market 2 and 3 years from now. So as you do public projects, the critical thing, which a lot of them miss, is making dark fiber available, not just lit services.
Okay, I think you've given new meaning to the Stockholm Syndrome. I'd like to thank our incredible panel. I'd like to thank everybody at ISOC for helping to make this happen, especially Jeff Alexander and SRI International for providing the awesome room. And to all of you for coming. Thank you.